let me see what this is. Okay. Hang on. Boom. Okay. Let me turn on my phone so I can see comments at least from my page.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so funny because with the whole COVID thing, everybody's like, "Oh my God, I can't get out of the house. I can't." Whoa.
What happened?
I don't know. That was trippy.
That
Oh,
was
I know what
lots
happened.
of stuff going on.
Okay, anytime we have technical issues, there's always a great show. So that's been very factual. Let me tag you. I'll tag you on Facebook.
Oh, great.
That way you can at least have that one. And okay, yeah, everybody's like, no, I can't go anywhere, and there you are, tagged. Okay, turn the sound down so people don't hear an echo. But yeah, like for us, it's just like normal, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Now,
yeah.
now people can gain from the solitude and isolation that we've shared with each other, and learn a little bit, learn a little something about themselves, right? As we have.
Yeah. Yeah. Of
So,
course.
yeah. But you look fantastic. You look great.
Thank. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
You
Thank you.
really
Yeah.
do.
I got attacked by some spike proteins from some vaccine injured people,
Now say
and
that. Whoa, you have to explain that to me. I've heard spike proteins associated with the vaccine. Is that right? Is it or is it yes?
yeah, people were shedding them. I mean, I won't put that in.
Oh, you okay? So in other words, you were dealing with the projection of those who were vaccinated, and you're making a reference, kind of metaphorically, that it was a spike protein coming at you.
Oh, it was. I mean, it was. So then I lost 20 pounds in 16 days.
Holy shit! Wait a
Yeah.
minute. Okay, so I read something, and first of all, it's great to see you.
It's
You look
great to see you too.
you look fantastic.
Thank
Burdens are blessings, and blessings are burdens, as
Yeah.
we all know. So we're not going into. I know you well enough to know you're not going into victim consciousness, but
No.
this is interesting. No, because I read something. God, when was this? It was probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it had to do. And I don't know who the person was, but it was interesting. And now that you're bringing this up, I'd love to dive
Hmm.
into it. So they were living in a household, and I believe that and obviously we have no stance on this. We're 0 point, and I'm
Right.
just talking about the platform. To each their own. Stay in your own lane, whatever. But
Yeah.
it was interesting because they said that I think there was 2 or 3 people in the household that had the vaccine, and then the person writing the post was saying that they had taken on they were affected by the energy of those people that were vaccinated in their experience, okay,
Yeah.
and that it had taken on, and I can't remember the details, but it had taken on a physicality, and that sounds like that's what happened with you.
Yeah. It was, it offered me a great detox, which was fine. For me, I don't look at things like, oh, this is all good and this is all bad. And,
Hmm.
I do have an acupuncture license. I have a way of viewing the body through that lens, but I also have my own way through my own intuition and my own connection to my soul. Right. So, but I had done acupuncture on 3 people in a row that had been injured from right, just directly from the injection.
Wow.
And I had worked on them post injection, and they were in the throes of the injury. And I actually I just didn't feel well. I felt a little fatigued after working on them. But when I went to the doctor, he said, "Oh, he looked at me and he said, I think you have a fever and you're having like he could tell just from, because he's a naturopathic doctor. So he has other means of testing, and he could tell that it was from the spike proteins. And he gave me a homeopathic remedy, which helped me to get all of that through my system. But I'd never
Wow.
had an experience where I burned through so much of my body
That's
in
crazy.
16 days. Like literally I woke up. I mean, I was I was in bed for pretty much 7 days, not eating. And then on a Kauai juice diet, like for 9 days after. And when I was like finally up and about, none of my clothes fit me.
So, okay, let me just understand this. I realize and I know that we're integrating the physical and the non-physical.
Yes.
So, and we're also expanding the 0 point field, which
Yeah.
includes which includes the byproducts of the fuckery out there.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's just put it that way. So, and then you're also a practitioner as well as an acupuncturist, so
Yeah.
you have a pretty good grasp of the body.
Yeah.
I just think we should jump into this a little bit because I've never really had a discussion about this, and maybe it'll be helpful to people. And then we'll move on to something else. But so, from your perspective or from your experience, how did the spike proteins are something that are contained in the vaccines, as I understand it? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
And how did you do you feel that that you physically absorbed it somehow? I mean, can they cough on you or sneeze on you or
Well,
something?
I have a different, I would say, I don't believe in germ theory.
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
with you.
So basically, in my mind, how we come into a place where we have an experience, like we're having an expression of a virus or expression of a bacteria
Right.
or expression of this spike protein, it's because it's a resonance, it's a
Sure.
transmission.
Sure.
So it's
Yeah.
the thought form transmission. And for me to have like three people in a row, and also to have one of them had a recurrence of very fast cancer, like right away after getting the injection, she exploded basically with cancer. So it was a very intense, right? And I was in their homes treating them. So there's that level of like,
Yeah. So
you know,
their field,
right.
their environment. So basically, what you're saying is that yeah, you took a deep dive.
I took a deep dive, and part of the reason to take that deep dive is so that my immune system is now educated, so that
Right.
so now I have an education on what that information field is. And
Right.
recently I had to go to New Jersey to care for someone very dear to me who got diagnosed with cancer and had an emergency situation because it was a lymphoma that exploded. And
Mm.
I can tell you that this person is also not participating in the injections, but is
Okay.
working on a lot of people who have been received the injections and had this very oddball explosion of cancer. And so I had to go help. And I was in and out of the hospital, surrounded by, and so I didn't have any impact. I haven't had any, we could say like that I'm educated. Now my immune system and my body knows how to process that. It didn't know how to process it because it was actually something different, right?
Right.
Something I hadn't seen before. So that's what happens. Sometimes we need to take the
I,
time
wo-
and process.
I wonder. Well, yeah, I can relate to this because I caught COVID in late September,
Mm,
and it sounds like you were. Well, I knew as soon as it came in, and as
yeah.
soon as it came in, I just immediately developed a communion with it, and
Hmm.
went through a 5 day, I guess you would say, like an initiation, which
Yeah.
you're just explaining it a different way or using different
Yeah.
words.
Yeah. It's an
Um,
education.
so like God, I just want to unpack a little bit of this.
Mhm.
So because there's no mistakes. I mean, you're working on somebody who had their let's just say the energy of their cancer that exploded as a result, seemingly, of taking the vaccine. Then you have another person who you go to take care of who did not participate with the vaccine but was exposed, like you were, to the energy of those that had, and theirs exploded. That's an interesting kind of thing.
Right.
That
It's like an interesting thing because New Jersey, there's many more chemtrails than here, and there's much more electromagnetic radiation. There's like
mm,
layer upon layer of things, right? And so for me, it was a fire initiation because I had a fever. But the
right,
other part was the homeopathic remedy that I was given to get through this initiation was something that was for vaccine injury in general. So that means that for me, it was like an opportunity to detox any of my childhood vaccinations through that,
wow,
which is why it was such an intense process,
wow,
because those things can linger in our system. And what will happen is our immune system will our immune system will, if it can't process things, it will suppress them inside the system. It'll hold it inside the system until we can deal with it, until a time when we can deal with it, or when we've reached a point where we just have to deal with it, right? It's like it can't hold it anymore. So that allowed me to have that experience of like processing through all of these things that I wasn't able to at the time, right? So even as, think about injecting an infant with, you're injecting an infant with toxins.
Yeah.
And then, when I was born, they told parents, don't breastfeed. Breast milk is inferior to this formula. So my mother, she listened. She did that, and she was kind of more natural for the most part, but this was something she followed. And so you think about what all the layers of things, like we could say fuckery, that happens to us out the gate, out. And so, this allowed me to actually detox a lot of that, we could say, inauthentic energy that was not beneficial for a human body, body, soul, spirit, being.
Right.
Yeah.
So, wow. Okay. So, a couple things. One, and just again from your perspective, it obviously the virus itself, however it was however it came in,
right? Whatever
is a we can look at it as from an energetic standpoint, just to use one word to cover what you're saying, and then the vaccine itself. Would you consider that a different energetic or entity? Because if you had to get used to the vaccine's energy, would you, or a person, would they have to separately get used to or assimilate the virus itself?
Well, so the thing is that because I've never really, if I break it down, right, I'm going to break one of the things that I think people overcomplicate things. A viral condition is a cold condition. It's energetic temperature is cold. A bacterial infection, its energetic temperature is hot. So here we have an expression of cold happening, right, going through, right, the collective, we can say. Right. And this expression of cold is causing a multitude of symptoms or experiences through the body, because not everybody who experiences this virus, this cold expression called COVID, doesn't have the same symptoms. And it's all because what that cold introduces to your system, what it's that energetic, it's saying, my experience in my body, this cold is helping to kick up these other things, right? Helping to detox my system of these things that I need detox. So then if you're talking about this injection, we don't know everything. First, we don't know everything that's in it.
True.
We don't really know if the viral material is in it because they've never isolated it or purified it. Right. And they kind of piece together, they Frankensteined it. It's like all different pieces together. So, here we have a mix of things, and we have others, the adjuvants that they use. And then we have this mRNA, which I don't know what temperature to give it. Do you see? Like, I don't know.
No, I'm with you. I'm trying to because I know that. Okay. So we'll make it more at a layman level. How about that? Do you feel that you'll be able to work with those, like these three folks, those that have been vaccinated? Are you immune to a point where you don't have to worry about that?
Yes, but the other thing is that most of them don't. Well, a lot of them don't want to work with me. I do have a few.
They clients. Don't want to work with you.
Well, some of them don't because of my stance, right? I'm not really allowed as a practitioner, as someone who, if someone asked me, should I drink diet soda? I would say no.
Right.
Like, if you want to drink diet soda, then this is the thing that you're going to run into if you choose to drink diet soda.
If you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you how I feel. That's right.
So if people ask me if they should do that, my answer is going to be no. So people want spiritual neutrality. Okay. Well, my answer is going to be no, because I know what it does to the system.
Right.
And I know it just makes it more difficult to maintain balance in the system. That's what it just to put it simply. So I would say no. So I do have some clients though that understand my stance, but also know that I'm going to help them. I'm going to be, I'm not going to judge them. I'm not judging anyone for that choice. And I will absolutely help them. And my clients who have, received the injections and have had injury from them, and some of them are not even doing acupuncture with them. I'm doing the soul work with them, and they are experiencing a very rapid and noticeable decrease of what they're calling their long COVID symptoms.
Okay.
AKA injury from injection.
Right.
So basically they're noticing a great reduction in their physical symptoms and in their mental emotional symptoms, and they feel much more centered.
What
Yeah.
are the long term? I don't mean to. I'm sorry.
No.
I've heard that term. What are the long COVID? Some of the symptoms.
Fatigue, lots of
Okay.
fatigue, pressure in the head, all different kinds of like head pressure.
Okay.
And like mostly it's like almost like just depression. Like there's this feeling, this is very difficult and mental fogginess.
Fogginess, yeah, I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult for them to stay clear. It's difficult for them to stay focused. It's difficult for them even like, sometimes their digestion is affected, so that they're experiencing like where they can't really eat what they could eat before. So there's a lot of weakness they're experiencing, if I had to give it a general term.
So if you had to look at this on the collective scale and just kind of using your experience and your knowledge, theoretically, what happened to you obviously was set up by your soul and
yeah.
But I mean, like, do you think at a collective level? I mean, obviously, COVID is a great gift. I mean, I can see that, but like this type of action reaction, like you picked up from those that were jabbed and you weren't jabbed, and you went through this process. Do you feel like that's happening on a collective level? That those who have, let's say, caught COVID. Well, that makes more sense. But I mean, like those that have gotten the vaccine, that others are picking up that same type of scenario that you have, like on a collective scale.
There are others. I have a lot of colleagues and friends and that are having similar experiences.
Wow.
And are especially, like are needing to, we have to work, bolster our immune systems a little bit more. Yeah. And be more mindful, which one of the gifts it's giving me is like, it's allowing me to say, you know what, I can be more mindful of, okay, maybe I don't need to see, I don't have to push myself to take on as many clients. I actually need this time to, to reset, to rejuvenate. I need to go to the ocean today, or I need to be in the sun today. I need to go and so it's, in a way, it's giving me like a permission, because I've had to set that boundary before, people really, because I've been doing this for over 20 years, like I see phases and waves of things happening. And sometimes it's like everyone's having an emergency all at the same time, which is kind of what's happening within my realm of practice right now.
Wow.
And then there are like, times where things are more still and stable. So it has like its ups and downs. So I'm seeing that there, because this was designed so that it impacts everyone, no matter if you get the injection or not. Now, if you get the injection, of course, you run the risk of like, of more, I would say, it's like you're taking it into the physical level. You're taking it right into the physical level.
Among other things.
And then so people who, but people who haven't taken it, it's still something in the energetic level that we're all negating. We're all negating this new, this whole situation and this whole way of, we could see, it's been an intense kind of, it's like almost being, it's like, I look at it as intense waterboarding, like they're waterboarding the collective intensely. it's like they bring them into a fear, like bah, and then they let it go, and then they do it again. This one,
Yeah.
people, just before people start to really
Yeah.
relax, they introduce something else to jack up their nervous
Yeah.
system. And so now kind of COVID has run its course. So if they introduce another illness, it will most likely need another name.
It's like a pattern of a Stockholm syndrome. You
Yes,
know,
yes, absolutely.
uh,
So
in your own right, in terms of your own expansion from this, your growth from this, how would you attribute that? How much of it was through connecting with yourself, self programming, and how much of it was, let's say, physical treatment or something to that nature?
meaning like how I came to my initiation with it.
Yeah,
Like,
how did
well,
you approach it? I mean, like for me, I mean, it was aspirin, herbal
um,
tea, but most of it was happening in the third eye and dimension. You know,
well,
that's
yeah. I didn't have, I've never had COVID. And
okay.
I actually, there are people that have, I think it's the CCR5 or CC5 Delta something 32. I can get you the information. They have a genetic thing where they don't get COVID, they don't get HIV, they
Okay.
don't.
Yeah.
So I actually have never gotten it. So what's interesting is that people don't think about this. I want to talk about acupuncture because I'm holding a piece of metal in my hand that I'm injecting into someone's body, and metal's a conductor.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you're talking about, I'm holding something that's inside someone's body and having a metal conduction, you understand, experience with whatever's going on in their body. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So people don't think about that level of what, like, actually, that's a very, you're penetrating the physical form, and you're holding on to the needle, and there isn't a communication that happens. But people don't, even acupuncturists don't think about this. So, so basically, like, for me, it was just, I just thought, I didn't know that I was actually reacting to this until I went to the naturopath, and he determined that that's what was happening.
Okay.
And so he addressed it. We addressed it with herbs and homeopathy. And that's what works for me. Everybody has a different way of dealing with it.
Yeah,
But mine,
that's what I was getting at. Whether it was
yeah,
COVID or whether it was your situation,
well,
how much of it was,
yeah,
you one on one with the universe or with your
right.
oversoul, and how much of it was the treatment. Yeah.
Oh yeah, some of it was a big initiation. It was my physical experience was fever and fatigue and sweating
Yeah.
and being laid out for days.
Well,
Um, for like 16 days.
20 pounds in 16 days. Yeah, that's pretty
I
intense.
just burned through. My body just literally sweated out and burned through, and it
Wow.
was a bizarre experience to get up and go, what happened to my butt? Like, where'd it go?
You just need to go back to that place me and Morgan used to meet you at that has that great breakfast with all the
That
roosters
wonderful
running around.
place. I know, right? No, I don't want to
Fatten
do
up.
that. Saying this is fine. So in a way, it helped me to say, okay, this is the way I need to be here. In this, my physical form needed to shift, and
Yeah.
that allowed me to shift my physical form quickly. So
Wow.
that,
Fascinating.
yeah, yeah. Mhm.
What about the just to kind of I'll wean off of this, but I'm just so curious about it. What about the because you don't hear obviously you don't hear a lot, certainly not in mainstream, about the effects. And you have three people, one that had the cancer energy in their body that was exacerbated, and the other two I think you alluded to that they had conditions that were exacerbated
Yes.
immediately after taking it. Did these three people associate their condition
No.
with having? Oh wow,
So
wow,
that's, you can't even,
that's
that's the interesting thing. There's a, you can't even address it. You can't, there's a big resistance to that piece of information if you try it.
yeah,
These specific people, I have other ones that are more open to understanding that the way I would see what they're calling long COVID is actually is actually injury. It's an injection injury.
Yeah.
Because most people that have had COVID have not had the injections don't have long COVID. They might have a little bit of, like, at least not to the extent, at least in my experience and what
Okay.
I've
Most people that have had COVID that have had the injection don't have long-term
that have
symptoms.
not the injection. So people who have had COVID and not had the injection, I haven't seen anyone that's got the
Okay.
long COVID that
Okay.
they're.
I see what you mean. Okay. I got
I'm
you.
I'm it doesn't exist. I'm saying I haven't seen it. But either way, it is I would say the lingering effects from it are worse from people that have gotten the injection
I got you. I
in
got you.
in my practice. That's
And
what I would.
and I wonder when you mentioned that some people have the CCCR or whatever it is,
Yeah.
where they have a like they're impervious to HIV or to COVID.
Yeah.
Would you think is it possible, or do you know, do are some people made in such a way that they would be impervious to the effects of the vaccine?
Well, I think some people got a saline solution, and I would say that
True. Yeah.
I'm sure there's the potential that some people are
Yeah.
impervious. I also know what I've heard from people who are bloodline experts is that they designed it to impact Rh positive bloodlines and not impact Rh negative bloodlines. That's all I can share about that. So there is a design, there is an intention with the design, and I'm not sure how they roll that out or how they make that happen. That's above my pay grade.
Well, I know some people that are Rh negative that have taken it. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Um, God, what a fascinating. And so you have contemporaries that are having some experiences with their clientele that kind of fall in line with yours.
Yes. I'm seeing similar symptoms and similar. The other thing I would say I could attribute it to like a collective experience is that people have gotten the injection. We could say their imbalances that they had pre-injection have been magnified and amplified.
Right.
And even personality, kind of like the way they express themselves, it's louder and bigger. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard a couple of stories along those lines too. Like, somebody removing themselves from the environment as a result of a change.
Yeah. Well, my sense, it's like collectively we're looking at, like, we're able to see, like, okay, it's like bringing everything to all the fuckery is at the surface, and it's more and more is exposing itself.
Mm-hmm.
How much, the human vessel, like, so the body vessel, like as a vessel for the soul, that they want to impact that. They don't want to have humans are amazing. The human body is amazing. And what it can do is it's made up of everything that's in the universe. And based on when you're born and certain things in your soul, and we could say, the parents, even your physical DNA, it's about you being able to express all those things through this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now they want to impact that so that people aren't expressing that people are just expressing whatever they want them to express. So they never even get to any level of authenticity within themselves. And so what came very loud for me is I thought more people were more authentic than before, and realizing now that that's not the case. I can see more clearly that there are people that they're just not. They're like shells in a way. Like, the way I would say it is like, how much, if I could took it like a percentage, make it really simple, like how much of your soul you're getting through your body. Maybe those people are only getting 1% and the rest is 99% of, Disney cartoons and mainstream media and programming and trauma and all that. So, what I would like to see is more people with a higher percentage of their soul through their body and a
Mm-hmm.
lower percentage, right, of it being some of the other stuff, we could say.
Well, you would think that, like in your situation with the story that you've told, like, excuse me, like with these three individuals,
Yeah.
um, if you can kind of, I look at like what's going on in general, and I look at different platforms, I look at different metrics. So say you have the COVID in general, vaccine, Ukraine, even
Yeah.
Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. I mean, like these things that are happening where people are going, oh, wait a minute, the cognitive dissonance starts
Right.
to fade away a little bit. But like with these three people, again, like I can see your point. Like, it's almost like, what's it going to take? But I can see how these things are waking people up,
Yes.
but I also know, just from having been there for 10 months, Kauai is a very special place,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it might not function quite like the general population, say in the mainland U.S. does, proportionate to the population of the island itself. I mean, because
Mm.
there's a lot of more prevalent energies, more diverse energies in a concentrated area over there. That this may be, I don't know, maybe it's some way that you and your contemporaries are being shored up and strengthened to hold it down, to offset those that can't see through the veil, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Kauai is so much alive, we could say. It's very
Yeah.
alive. What's interesting is that I've had some experiences where I have dreams about people that I haven't seen in a while or
Mm.
connected with. And I would contact them and I'd say, hey, I had a dream about you last night. Do you want to know about it? Because I don't just blurt out stuff. I'm a permission based, basically energy healer and reader. So I always ask permission because I respect the human, right?
Sure.
And so that usually they will always say yes. But what'll happen is that person we haven't connected in a while. Like those people didn't realize I was living here. And then they're like, I'm coming to Kauai like in a few days. I didn't know they were coming here. So the island was telling me, like, it was like giving them the prescription of the stuff that they needed to work on while they were here.
Right.
And also like kind of like, don't bring this here, bring this here. Like it was like almost telling them what to unpack and what to pack
Yeah.
as far as like mental, emotional, spiritual stuff. Um, so, there, I would say Kauai is no joke, and people come here. I would call it in a spiritual la la land kind of, as if it's going to be always the most amazing thing. But Kauai will teach you things, and it's
Mm-hmm.
going to teach you things. It's going to make the lesson very clear.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Oh, I know. It's definitely has a great purpose if you can,
yeah.
if you approach it that way. There's no doubt.
Well,
How
yeah,
many? Go
and go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
No, you go.
you go ahead. Go ahead, Tom.
Um, so, given everything that you've experienced,
Mm,
there's a lot of talk about, again, integration, 0 point,
right.
integrating polarities. How has this served you, or has it not? How has this assisted you, or not, in terms of being able to integrate the fuckery and those that play the role of initiating the fuckery?
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. So it was interesting because when it was all happening, because we haven't talked in a long time, but when this all started happening, I was like, I'm not talking about this crap. I'm not doing it. I'm not talking about COVID. I'm not doing it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not giving it I'm just like, and then I realized after like a week, I was like, shit, I'm gonna have to talk about this. So I started talking about, do you realize that a stranger into your house that's coming through a black box? These people on your TV are strangers. They are not your friends. So I started to try to talk to the psychology part of what was going on right away, because that's what I was directed to do. And I'm like, I don't know where I'm going with this, but so it's an interesting thing, like to think about how you navigate. So, all right. how you navigate reality, right? So the reality we're in this three-dimensional reality, all this stuff is happening. How many times do you hear someone say, well, that's not my reality, that's not my reality, but
Right.
you're here and you're living in a body, so guess what? It is part of your reality. Now, it doesn't mean that's the reality we want to create. We don't let the COVID narrative, the Ukraine narrative, the Will Smith, Chris Rock narrative determine our reality, but it is part of it. So we can't negate that. We can't just go, it's not there, it's not real. Actually, it is real. It is part of this being here. And so those that are perpetuating the fuckery, they know they are masters. They are psychological manipulation masters.
Right.
They know how to manipulate us. And so the other thing that I would say, like, as far as how I'm navigating that and how I suggest people navigate that, is you have to be curious and you have to be open and teachable. You have to be willing to learn. And so that's why it's like, well, even when I tell people, don't trust what I tell you, go sit with it and digest it and see what works for you. I am not the last word, right? I am not, that is not how this works being here. So it's about really tuning in and realizing that we don't know all the ways of the manipulation. I can't sit here and tell you I know exactly what these people are going to do next. In fact, I don't even want to care about what they're doing next. I know they're going to do something. I know they have a right.
Yeah. There's a bit of a lag. I get it. Like, Todd's a full-time job. Jennifer's a full-time job. But you make a really good point because, to me, humility has always been the best metric to gauge myself. And I guess, at the risk of judging / discerning as I look at others, but anyone, it's one thing to have the COVID, the vaccine, the mandates, and the bullshit that went with it. The Ukraine would be another, kind of big topic. But I think this whole thing that happened at the Oscars, it's kind of like that Ram Dass saying, if you think you're awake, and go spend some time with your family.
Oh,
but it's like, if we thought we've come a long way, and I know we have, and I'm just kind of being funny, but to see the amount of polarity that reared its head from something so stupid and obvious and telegraphed and scripted or whatever, even if it wasn't scripted. I mean, it was just, it was, sure it was. I mean, but to look at something like that's essentially a cartoon and doesn't carry the mortality issues and so on of like some of the things that we mentioned, we've always got room to grow, I guess is all I can say.
Yeah. But that, to me, it's like, how can I grow every day? Like, I go every session that I have with a person, I just say, okay, what's the energy going to show me? What can I learn? How can I help them? I'm not, just because the one thing about, what I could say, if I had to talk about what I do, like, great, I have the title of acupuncture, I have the title of massage therapist, I taught Iyengar style yoga, you can get all these certifications, right? But my job was to integrate. I've been on an integration path, and at the same time, while I was working on people, I would get smacked in the face with myself. Right. It was constant. It was like it was constant for me, and it still is. So if I don't work on myself, I get a smackdown. It's no joke, and this is the way it is.
Yeah. And
I'm okay with that. So it's about integration. It's about being able to digest the reality, and to have healthy digestion with reality.
Right.
And that takes time, and it takes time to sit and to perceive. And I am a full-time job to be me, and to be able to do what I know what I have to do in order to do what I do, right? To offer what I offer to the world. And they don't, there's a lot of, I would say, if I could say something that I think will be helpful for everyone is, one is to realize that even the New Age movement has been infiltrated because these people leave no stone unturned. Just, it's one thing to, you have to understand there's no stone that's been left unturned, meaning there's no job, there's no role in this reality that has not had some information infiltration.
That's right.
Now, it doesn't mean that you're messed up. It doesn't mean any of that. It means that you need to sit with yourself, to be in alignment, to do this energetic alignment work, and to be okay with being wrong. Sometimes I'm wrong, right? And just to be open. Like, you can't really, just to be open to, again, like I said, learning and observing and waiting a little bit, digest that experience a little bit before you make a decision about it. Because ultimately what they rob us of is our focus.
Mm-hmm. That's all it is. That's all it is. You can talk about germs, you can talk about viruses, you can talk about wars, but really, and that incident at the Oscars is the perfect proof, right?
Well, yeah.
Although I will say that obviously everything's pointing to the deconstruction, or let's just say in this instance, Hollywood, mainstream media, movies, but that was just kind of like a reminder that, hey, we don't take your eyes off the ball, stay on your toes, because you could be pulled off. It's possible, and I like the way that you're coming through, because what you're alluding, or what you're exuding when you talk about your experience, and even like doing work as a practitioner, and having done it for so long. A lot of people, you heard a lot 5-10 years ago about, you got to protect yourself, you got to protect yourself, you got to protect yourself. Mm-hmm. And I'm listening to you, and I can almost see like an evolution. I'm not saying that I'm right about this, but and it would only be natural that how you approach a session has evolved as how you approach life has evolved. So I can almost see you like going in now going, hey, I'm open. I'm on Jennifer 24/7. I'm open to whatever comes. I respect whatever comes, as opposed to going, constructing some type of shield, and like going, okay, I'm going to go in and do this session, which is actually inhibiting the session, because you're more shut down, and the more shut down you are, the less connectivity you're going to have, and so on. But yeah, I can see where, like even knowing you, and this goes for myself, this, people that observe me. It goes for people that I, hook up with every 6 months on the show, or maybe it's been a year, like with you or whatever. But you can see the individual awareness, and, the effect of being more aware of self, and more responsible for self, and therefore more in tune. So I don't know how many of us or people like you are out there, but I gotta believe that number is growing, just as you contracted these symptoms that are symptomatic of those that get a vaccine, even though you didn't get one. There's got to be the same thing occurring on the good end of the spectrum, so to speak.
Oh yeah, I definitely, this is they're calling it the awakening, right? And that's why they're disturbing the awakening process. They're disturbing the process of being able to be more open and to receiving, what's true. Like, and I'm not talking about like that whole thing of this is my truth and that's your truth. No, I'm talking about just absolute truth that I don't have words to tell you what that is. It just is it is a vibration. It's a frequency. And what that person is as a truth, the truth that person came here to embody, to be. So it's a very, I like to look at things like you could tell different practitioners, like, when I deal with entity consciousness, like depending on how it's presenting, I don't have this like, I don't have that reaction to it. I just look at it and see like, what does it need? It doesn't matter what it is. Like, what is this is obviously harming it's taking the person out of balance, what do we need to do to help this person get into balance? And where does this thing, does it need transmutation? Do I need to, what does it need? And
Yeah.
I mostly direct my clients to do the work themselves. Because I want to empower them. I don't want to do unconscious healing. Sometimes I do. Some people aren't at that level of discernment or even connection where they can do conscious healing work on themselves. Although I keep getting them there, right? That's the goal. For me, it's like, let me just guide you through the work that you can already do yourself, that you just don't know yet. You've forgotten, that's all. So get into this alignment. When you get into that alignment, it's easier to do this work. And that's it. This is how we operate. So then it's based on their perception. It's how they perceive the imbalance.
Right. Right.
It's through my lens.
I mean, to me, like the greatest lesson from the medical industry is the placebo effect.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, to be applied, but people, and I've seen people react to the statement that the reason you have this affliction or the reason you have whatever is because of you. And people are like, F off,
Yeah.
But it seems like, and maybe you can shed some light on this because you see clientele for a long period of time. And you have like an information pool that you can pull from. That maybe people are starting to understand that it's about their own energy field, and it's not so much something is encroaching upon you. It's that because of the way that your energy is distributed, something has the ability to break through into your field.
Right.
And are people more open to that from your perspective and from your experience?
Into hearing that? Is that it depends on the person. And I have I studied with Jeffrey Yuen, who's an 88th generation Taoist priest, and I really appreciate his teachings.
Wow.
Right?
What? 88
generation, right? Taoist priest. So he's carrying the lineage.
Holy shit. That's like what? That's going to be like 2,000 years or something.
Yeah. And everything is oral tradition. So he doesn't give you have to sit there and he doesn't tell people, but he's channeling.
Do you do that on the island, or was that something you picked up in Jersey?
Oh no, I did it in New York City. I did it with him in person.
Okay.
I studied with him for 3 years post acupuncture school.
Wow.
Because I wanted to fill in the places that where acupuncture as a medicine has been. I knew that had already been infiltrated while I was in school. Right. And I knew I needed a little bit more, or I wanted more, basically. So, but the one thing about Taoism is it's an Eastern philosophy, so it's always going to be a little bit more on the pacifist. It's going to be more pacified. It's going to be more submissive. But his mentality of treatment, or his way of philosophy of treatment, was if people believed that the cancer, we could say cancer, was something that came from outside of them, the devil outside, he treated them based on that.
Okay.
If they believed it was the devil inside, he treated them based on that. So he worked with their belief system.
Right. Yeah, he I got you. And did he have the same approach? Not that it's right or wrong, and I agree with your approach. Did he have the same approach to empower, or does the philosophy of that training have the approach of empowering people as opposed to doing it for them?
I don't. I would say I haven't seen that I mean, there is
that came from you, I guess, your own evolution.
Yeah, that was my own. I basically just kind of started saying that came from my own evolution. Like, it's like asking a mother to keep cleaning up. The kid keeps asking the mom to clean up its room.
Right, of course.
And after so many years of doing that, I basically said, clean your own room, people.
Right.
That we have to get to the place where we're going there, where we're more responsible. Now he Jeffrey probably wouldn't have that language because of the way that his training is, and He does do things and he speaks to clients. I said, or patients one-on-one. I'm sure he's empowering them to make different choices.
Right.
But he, it's a whole different mentality. He has a whole different way of being. Yeah.
Do you see, like, with your contemporaries, be they on Kauai or on the mainland or other places in the world, do you see a shift to that type of self-empowerment approach to healing?
I only see it with me and certain people. I'm not seeing it like as widespread. And I think it's because you have to get to a certain point, as we could say, being in the role of healer to get there. Like I had to get to the point of saying, you know what, people, it's time for you to clean your room. Right? I
Right.
can't, I'm not going to sit here and keep cleaning it for you. That being said, there might be people who that's their role to keep doing that and just keep ferrying these
True.
people until they're ready to grow, to be responsible, and then find that practitioner that's going to help them do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, anyone that would like to hear some interesting stories, you could query on YouTube or on Facebook, SoulSpeaks 5D, Jennifer's name. She has a fascinating story how she ended up in Kauai.
Hell yeah.
I know, hell yeah is right. Uh, how has Mother Kauai presented you with anything? I know this is kind of a stupid question, but like
No.
otherworldly, anything that just kind of jumps out over the last year or two? Have you had any experiences during this time when we've had such?
Right. Well, yeah. So when so backtracking, like when I was like I realized like, I'm like, like when all the COVID stuff happening, I started like, oh, I got to the full, like kind of like bottom, we could say full understanding of like how inverted this world was. And, and like my soul's pointing towards the satanic principles and showing me them. And like, so all these things are like coming into my consciousness without me studying them or looking for them. I'm just having the insights. And, then there's the FEMA camps and all these things, like all the information came out like all at once for me. And I was like, well, because everyone's talking about food security, even here, because when they had the floods here on the North Shore, like in my mind, I was like, well, there'll be fruit on the trees. Well, not if the floods come and carry all the fruit away. So you never know what's going to present itself. But Mother Kauai just said to me, I will provide. I have resources, excuse me. So, and said, I will provide. And just told me, like, don't worry about any of that. And so I don't worry about where we're going. I don't worry about I don't think about, oh, well, maybe we won't have food. Well, then we won't have food. I'll deal with that time when it comes.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
And given the size of the island, I think about 50,000 people. It's a nice little sample group. Did you see community-wise? I know you're, like most of us, and you're somewhat of a hermit.
I'm a hermit. Yeah.
Yeah, but did you see? Because I saw some interesting stuff. Really, you saw it everywhere. Where you saw a lot of fluctuations. You saw a lot of, kind of extreme behavior by governments and so on, and pushback from people and so on. But did you see any type of shift at all in the populace on the island, like that maybe showed that people expanded from it, or what was your experience?
Well, I can tell you the one thing that I was very surprised about was how many of the native Kauaians, or even like some of the people who would be considered cultural practitioners, got the injections.
Wow.
Now, the one thing I'll say about that, which Mother Kauai did tell me, is that they, their DNA, right? Our DNA is connected to the land. So what's going to happen now when you have indigenous people being impacted, because they're, even think about the Aborigines and the dream world, and this connection to the land, and they're carrying it in their blood, and now their DNA is changed. So they don't really, they're still doing their cultural practices, but I don't know what's happening with the ancients and the ancestors and all the ability to work with the land energies the way that they did in the past, working through that lineage. So I'm watching them. I'm like kind of like on the pulse of Mother Kauai, and that's why there are other people here, other people who have a history, we could say, with Lemuria, or just have a history with this land, are here to maintain. We have it in our spiritual DNA, are here to help maintain that balance.
Yeah.
That's been imbalanced now by this, injection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying earlier. That surprises me too. Do you think maybe it's because and I don't know if this is a fact, but I would think it's probably somewhat true that maybe that segment of the island has that they're connected in terms of like government subsidies more than most of
Right. Well, there's a little bit of that, but so I actually asked someone. I said, why are so many? Because I was so perplexed in the beginning, and they have a history. Their history, what they know of their history, let's say that way, what they've been told about their history is that the white people came and brought germs and it killed them.
Right.
That's why their numbers have dwindled. I don't know if that's actually true. So they're very afraid. They have a fear of illness, of germs.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. And then, I mean, it also could get very complex. I mean, maybe they have certain karmic things, as a group that they have to go through and to bring things back into equilibrium. I mean, there's so many, obviously, so many dynamics.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
What I had no, but this is what I love about this show. You just never know what you're going to talk about. But
no, I didn't know we were going to.
Probably one of the, we've talked about the subject. But to me, this is probably the most substantial conversation we've had around the subject, without a charge, with an open-mindedness from both. I mean, from the guest and really some hands-on experience. I mean, it would have been enough that you were exposed to people that were dealing with it, but you actually had your own initiation and expansion come from from the. Seemingly the fuckery. I love that word. I can't stop saying it when
I love that word. I call it the fuckery and the sorcery.
Wow, very cool.
Forecast, fuckery, and sorcery. Yeah. No.
So it's really good seeing you. You look fantastic.
Thank you.
I hope we get to see you again in person on the island. That's one of the possibilities we've kicked around.
Oh, good. Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, that would be great.
We can...
yeah, I want to go back to that restaurant and have that avocado toast with the sprouts.
So you want the avocado toast with the sprouts, and I want the waffles.
Oh, that's right. You got the waffles. I don't think I ever had a waffle there, but their food was amazing.
Yeah, their food was good.
I was trying to eat a little bit less at the time, but I love that place. That's a perfect place.
Yeah,
that was like our go-to place when as we were trying to find a way until we finally found a place that we could actually stay and afford. But yeah, it's good seeing you, and all blessings to you and all yours over there and what you're doing. And thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for speaking out and being open with us. You didn't have to do that, and so I really appreciate it. And maybe we get together again in 2022, not wait so long.
Yes, I would love to. And thank you so much. Blessings to you and Morgan. And I look forward to connecting again, Todd.
Okay, you take care. Peace out.
Bye.